My name is Matthew Lane, and I have always believed myself to be a keen observer of people. To me, stories are just waiting to be uncovered in the ordinary chaos of everyday life. I don't chase adventure, adventure typically finds me. And the tale I am about to share is no exception. It happened in Boston, 2 summers ago, in a house filled with string lights, jazz music, and 100 people pretending their lives were curated perfection. The evening eventually became one of the strangest and funniest nights I had ever witnessed, all because of a young woman named Claire Anderson. I work really hard to make videos for you all, so please subscribe to my channel and like this video. Also, make sure to tell me your name and where you are watching this story from. Let's start the story. Claire was not someone you might immediately notice if you stepped into that room. She didn't seek attention the way so many others did. Her smile was a little nervous, her laughter quick and sometimes too quiet, but for those who knew her, she was a hurricane of contradictions. She was sensible yet impulsive, self-aware yet misguided, romantic yet terrified of romance all at once. And that particular evening, well, she decided to hire a stranger to play her fiancé. You see, Claire was engaged, or at least, that's what people thought. She had been dating a man named Ryan Miller for almost a year. Ryan was handsome in the casual way that made others jealous without his even trying. He was smart, too, but impulsive, and more than once had embarrassed Claire with his loud personality at the wrong time. He wasn't cruel, not at all, but he was unpredictable. Now, Claire's company, an architecture firm she had just joined, was hosting a prestigious networking event. This was no ordinary party. It was one of those gatherings where reputations were built or buried, where introductions could lead to dream projects, or worse, whispered doubt. Claire wanted everything to be perfect. She wanted to walk in with poise, to appear gracefully settled. And above all, she wanted no unpredictable scenes. Ryan will say something awkward, she told herself while pacing her apartment a week before the event. Or he'll get too many drinks, or he'll try to crack a joke about my boss. No, I can't take that risk. Not this time. And so, after a series of late-night considerations, she did something spectacularly unwise. She opened a freelance app and posted an unusual offer under event acting. Looking for someone to play my fiancé at a formal work party. Must be polite, well-dressed, and convincing. 1 evening only. Payment negotiable. The man who responded was Alex Turner. Alex was not at all the man Claire expected. She had pictured someone stiff, awkward maybe, who just needed the money. Instead, Alex was tall, charming, with an amused grin that made Claire suspicious right away. By profession, he was an off-Broadway stage actor trying to make rent between auditions. Pretending to be someone else came naturally to him. At their quick coffee meeting, he leaned back with a theatrical ease that annoyed and intrigued Claire. So, he said, I'm to be your knight in shining rental tuxedo. What's the role? Loving partner? Quietly supportive fiancé? Or should I dazzle with witty charm and impress your colleagues? Claire, flustered, adjusted her glasses. Just be convincing. Normal. Don't perform too much. And for heaven's sake, don't improvise. Alex smirked. You just hired an actor and told him not to improvise. But he agreed. Everything was set. Claire felt a wave of relief. She could finally attend the party without worrying about Ryan's unpredictable flair. Only, Claire made one grave mistake. She never informed Ryan that she didn't want him at the event. The night of the party arrived. The Anderson family had always loved hosting in grand New England style, and though this was Claire's company's event, it felt just as luxurious as one of her family's old gatherings. The historic brick building in downtown Boston glowed under golden lights. Jazz music floated out of tall windows. Women wore elegant gowns, men polished shoes on marble floors. Claire arrived with Alex beside her, his tux tailored, his hand gently resting at the small of her back as though this were second nature. People turned heads. "Claire, you didn't tell us your fiancé was so handsome," one of her colleagues exclaimed. Alex gave a small bow and said, "I'm lucky every day." Claire nearly choked on her champagne. He was good. Too good. Every smile of his looked authentic, every glance at her tender, every laugh too natural. And one by one, people were charmed. For the first hour, everything unfolded perfectly. Until Ryan walked through the door. Ryan Miller was many things, confident, adventurous, quick with a laugh, but punctual was not one of them. He hadn't told Claire he was coming, mostly because he wanted to surprise her. In his mind, what could be more romantic than showing up at her important work event, flowers in hand, and proving to everyone that he could rise to the occasion? So when he stepped through the double glass doors of the ballroom in his navy suit, clutching a small bouquet of roses, he expected to see Claire alone or mingling shyly, needing him for balance. What he saw instead made him freeze mid-step. There was Claire, glowing in a soft emerald dress, her hair styled with unusual care, her posture vibrant. She looked happy. More than happy, radiant. And beside her was a man Ryan had never met before. A man who stood close to her, fingers resting lightly on her arm, speaking confidently to her colleagues as though he'd known her for years. Ryan's chest tightened. His first thought was disbelief. His second, rage. "Who the hell is that?" he muttered to himself as he shoved the bouquet into a bewildered waiter's arms and stormed across the marble floor. Claire saw him before anyone else did. Her heart nearly fell into her heels. No. No, no, no. This can't be happening. Ryan waved at her in his easy, cocky manner, oblivious to the storm about to erupt. He strode straight toward them. Alex noticed immediately the intensity in Ryan's walk, the clenched fists, the piercing stare. For an actor, sensing conflict was like second nature. "Friend of yours?" Alex whispered under his breath, smile still frozen on his lips for appearances. Claire's voice was glass-thin. "That's my fiancé." Alex blinked, and then, for the first time that evening, his grin faltered. "The real fiancé?" Before Claire could answer, Ryan arrived, his voice loud enough for several heads to turn. "Claire! What's going on here?" The table of colleagues beside them went silent. Someone coughed awkwardly. The jazz felt suddenly too loud. Alex, unfazed, extended a hand as though this meeting had been rehearsed. "Alex Turner," he said smoothly. "And you are?" Ryan ignored the hand. He looked straight at Claire. "Who is he?" Claire's mind scrambled. A dozen excuses fluttered by, coworker, old friend, distant cousin maybe. But Alex, sensing the drama thickening, leaned in and with a smirk said, "I'm her fiancé, of course." "Haven't you heard?" The room tilted. Claire's breath caught. Ryan's eyes blazed. "Fiancé?" Ryan barked. "Funny, because I'm her fiancé. And I've got the ring to prove it." He yanked his hand out of his pocket and pointed at the band glimmering on his fourth finger. Gasps rustled through the air like whispers across dry leaves. Colleagues glanced at one another, at Claire, at the two men now standing almost nose to nose. Claire wished she could vanish into her champagne glass. "This is exactly why I said don't improvise," she muttered under her breath to Alex, but Alex only arched a brow as though thoroughly enjoying himself. Ryan turned to the crowd now assembling. "Everyone! I don't know what kind of game this is, but I am the one she's promised to marry. Claire, back me up here." 50 eyes locked on her. Her boss, Mr. Whitaker, leaned his chin on one hand, watching like this was better than television. Her throat went dry. This was hell, and there was no script for it. Dinner was announced before the drama could explode further, sparing Claire for the briefest reprieve. Guests shuffled to their assigned tables, pretending not to stare at her trio. But gossip sparked already. "Did you see?" whispered one woman from accounting. "2 fiancés? Who does that?" Claire, to her horror, discovered that both Alex and Ryan were seated at her table along with half the senior partners of the firm. It was a feast of silence and tension. Ryan sat rigid, stabbing at his steak as though it had wronged him personally. Alex lounged like it was merely an entertaining scene to observe. Claire kept forcing a polite smile that felt dangerously close to cracking. "So," Mr. Whitaker boomed after a few wary bites of lamb, "seems Claire has impeccable taste in men, 2 fine gentlemen vying for her attention." Quite a complication. Forks froze midair. Claire could hear her pulse in her ears. "It's not a complication," Ryan snapped. "I'm her only fiancé. This man is, what are you anyway? An actor? A liar? Without me, she wouldn't even." "Without you," Alex interrupted, raising a calm eyebrow, "she wouldn't have hired me to save face tonight." The entire table went silent. Ryan's jaw dropped. "Hired you?" All eyes now swung back to Claire. Claire felt the ground tilt beneath her as Ryan's furious eyes fixed on her. Alex's smug calmness radiated across the table, and her boss leaned forward with the same intrigue one reserves for courtroom dramas. "Claire," Ryan said slowly, his voice tightening like a rope, "tell me this isn't true. Tell me you didn't hire this guy." Alex sipped his wine delicately. "Actor, if you please. To be your fiancé at your own work event?" Ryan finished in disbelieving anger. The weight of expectation pressed down on Claire's chest. Her colleagues didn't look away. A woman from HR was practically taking notes. Claire's fork clanged onto the plate. She inhaled sharply. "Okay. Fine. I did hire Alex. But only because I thought if you came tonight, you'd embarrass me in front of everyone." The words fell like a chandelier crashing in a silent room. Ryan's expression twisted between hurt and indignation. "Embarrass you? That's what you think of me?" Claire opened her mouth, but Alex, ever eager for a dramatic beat, leaned forward. "In her defense, you do have a bit of an unpredictable streak." Ryan whipped toward him. "Stay out of this. You don't even belong here." Alex grinned. "Oh, I very much belong here. Maybe not in reality, but in performance. And by the looks of it, the audience loves me." There was, in fact, a ripple of muffled laughter around the table, mostly from colleagues who were trying, and failing, not to enjoy the absolute train wreck unfolding. Ryan slammed his fist on the table, rattling the cutlery. "I'm not a joke. I'm her fiancé. We're getting married, and this clown is going to walk away right now." But Alex wasn't budging. If anything, he leaned even more casually in his chair, one arm draping across the backrest as though ready to deliver a monologue. Claire wanted the floor to swallow her whole. The rest of the dinner spun into chaos. Instead of avoiding confrontation, both men seemed to treat the evening as their personal battleground. During the salad course, Ryan insisted on recounting how he and Claire first kissed during a summer fireworks show on the Boston Harbor. He gestured passionately, painting himself as the romantic hero. Claire cringed, especially when Alex chimed in, "Cute story. But Claire and I once shared a kiss under a thunderstorm, and it was completely improvised." "That's real passion." Gasps flew around the table. Claire nearly shot him a death glare, but Alex winked as though they were co-stars in a comedy act. By the AITA, the competition had turned ridiculous. Ryan bragged about his career advancements, and Alex countered with an elaborate and entirely fabricated tale of designing sets for Broadway productions where the audience cried for hours after my performance. They both tried to cut Claire's steak for her, their hands nearly colliding with knives, until she finally shouted, "I can cut my own dinner, thank you." Everyone at the table flinched. Mr. Whitaker smirked as if this evening had given him an entire year's supply of entertainment. As dessert plates were cleared, Claire had reached a breaking point. Her cheeks burned from embarrassment, her heart ached from guilt toward Ryan, and her head throbbed from Alex's theatrical improvisations. Finally, she stood up in front of the entire table, maybe even the entire ballroom. "Enough," she yelled, her voice echoing against the high ceiling. The jazz band abruptly stopped mid-song. Forks clattered. All eyes snapped to her. Claire's hands trembled, but she steadied herself with a deep breath. "I can't do this anymore. Yes, I hired Alex. Yes, I was wrong not to trust Ryan. And yes, this is the most humiliating night of my life. But if you want the truth," she paused, voice cracking, "I was scared. Scared that if I walked in here with my real fiancé, people wouldn't take me seriously. Scared of being judged for not being perfect. And instead, I made everything 100 times worse." The silence was thick, then broken only by a cough somewhere in the back. Ryan's anger softened a little at her honesty, though it still flickered in his stare. Alex, surprisingly, didn't smirk this time. His eyes crinkled with something closer to admiration. For the first time all evening, Claire stood in control of her own story. The banquet ended awkwardly but not disastrously. People were still whispering, of course, this would be office gossip for years, but Claire noticed some nods of respect too. Perhaps vulnerability, raw as it was, had impressed them more than false glamour ever could. Ryan, however, wasn't letting her off so easily. Outside near the valet line, he crossed his arms. "So, that's how little you think of me? That I'd ruin your night just by being myself?" Claire hesitated, guilt heavy in her chest. "Not ruin. I didn't trust you. And that's on me." Ryan shook his head. "Because you wanted safe. Controlled. Some actor you could script into perfection?" Alex cleared his throat nearby. "In her defense, I am very good at what I do." "Not helping," Claire snapped. This wasn't just about the party anymore. It was about the cracks in her relationship with Ryan, the ones she had been ignoring for months. For the first time, she realized that maybe her fear wasn't only about him embarrassing her, it was about whether or not he truly fit into the life she was trying to build. The night wasn't over, but the comedy was giving way to something bittersweet. The valet line was cold, the Boston air carrying a sharp breeze that made Claire clutch her shawl tighter. The last of her guests filed out behind them, some sneaking amused glances, others whispering. Claire knew this had cemented her reputation, not as elegant and polished, but as the woman with 2 fiancés in one night. Ryan's voice cut through her spiraling thoughts. "Claire," he said, standing rigid in his gray suit, "do you even want to marry me? Or was this whole thing just a mistake you're too scared to admit?" The question landed heavy. Claire bit her lip, the words clogging in her throat. She wanted to say yes, desperately, because Ryan was good to her in many ways. But staring at his expectant, angry face, she realized the truth she'd been burying deep. Her voice wavered. "I don't know." Ryan's jaw tightened. His hand went to his hair, ruffling it in frustrated disbelief. "You don't know? After a year, after everything, you don't know?" Alex, casually leaning against the building's stone column, finally spoke. To be fair, tonight wasn't exactly the ideal environment for clarity. Ryan spun on him. "You stay out of this." But Claire whispered, almost to herself, "He's right." Tonight was chaos, but it laid everything bare. Alex glanced between them, his confident smirk gone for once. "Look, Claire, I know I was hired to play a role, but what I saw tonight was a woman terrified of being judged, and two men caught in the storm, well, one in the storm, one improvising through it." His grin returned faintly. "Guess which one I was?" She laughed weakly despite herself. Ryan folded his arms, still fuming. "This isn't funny." "No, it's not," Alex agreed. "But sometimes the truth comes dressed like comedy. It's easier to swallow when everyone's laughing. Tonight, though, maybe the laugh is over." Claire blinked at him. Why was he being gentle? Understanding? This was supposed to be a hired part, nothing more. Yet, Alex's words touched some raw, hidden part of her she hadn't expected. Her gaze drifted between them, Ryan, safe but unpredictable, angry yet familiar, Alex, a stranger who had become almost alarmingly fast, the sharp mirror she didn't know she needed. The valet pulled Ryan's car around. He grabbed the keys sharply but didn't get in right away. He looked at Claire, eyes blazing with equal parts anger and grief. "You couldn't trust me," he said slowly. "And if you can't trust me in a ballroom full of your coworkers, how can you trust me in a life together? Think about it, Claire. Really think." Her chest ached. She wanted to stop him, to say something, anything, that could fix the fracture. But no words came. Ryan shook his head, got into his car, and drove away. The taillights painted red streaks across the dark street as they disappeared. Alex stepped up beside her, silent for once. Neither moved or spoke for a long moment. Finally, Claire whispered, almost broken, "I messed everything up." Alex hesitated, then said softly, "Or maybe you just finally admitted what was already broken." They didn't leave immediately. Instead, they walked, the Boston streets glowing under lamplight. Claire hugged herself against the chill, Alex offering his jacket with an exaggerated bow that, against her better judgment, still made her smile faintly. "You really didn't have to stir it up so much in there," Claire said after a while. "You could have just backed off." "Me?" Alex laughed. "Claire, I may be an actor, but believe me, half of that was pure instinct. You had two worlds colliding tonight. And like any scene, when tension rises, sometimes you just play along." She glanced at him, her voice small. "And what role were you really playing, Alex?" He stopped walking, looking at her with rare seriousness. "At first? Paid fiancé. But after the second or third laugh I got out of your colleagues, I realized I wasn't acting for them. I was acting for you. Trying to keep you afloat." Claire blinked. That confession nudged at her heart in a way she hadn't expected. Why does this stranger make me feel safer than Ryan did all night? But she pushed the thought down. It was too soon, too raw. That night, Claire returned to her apartment alone, her emerald dress draped across the chair, her makeup smudged. She thought about Ryan, about the hurt in his face. She thought about Alex, the playfulness beneath his sincerity. And late into the night, she thought about herself. Her whole life, she realized, had been built on the fear of imperfection, saying the right thing, presenting the right image, being the polished professional her firm would respect. And tonight, with two fiancés colliding in chaotic spectacle, she had learned the truth. People talk, people laugh, but what lingers is honesty. She didn't have answers yet, but one thing was certain, she couldn't go back to pretending, not in relationships, not in her career, not even with herself. For 3 days, Claire didn't hear from Ryan. Not a text, not a call. Her apartment felt too quiet, her phone too heavy in her hand. She typed out apologies she never sent, stared at the ring box on her dresser like it was mocking her indecision. On the fourth night, there was a knock at her door. When she opened it, Ryan stood there, looking tired, his shirt untucked, his usual confidence dulled. "Can we talk?" he asked, voice softer than she expected. She let him in. He didn't pace or raise his voice this time. Instead, he sank into her couch and glanced around like he didn't belong there anymore. "I thought about everything," Ryan said, rubbing his temples. "That night, it hit me hard. Maybe I am unpredictable. Maybe I try too hard to be the center of attention. But Claire, what hurts isn't that you wanted control. It's that you didn't even give me the chance to prove I could be what you needed." Claire's chest ached. His words weren't wrong. She had cut him out without a conversation, replaced him with a performance. But deep down, another truth whispered, if you had trusted him completely, would you have been tempted to hire Alex in the first place? The very next morning, as if the universe were mocking her, Claire spotted Alex outside her office building. He was leaning against the wall with his usual crooked grin, holding a coffee cup in one hand. "What are you doing here?" she demanded, startled. "Boston isn't that big. Plus, your firm's corner office view kind of gives you away," Alex shrugged. Then he handed her the coffee. "I owed you one. Decaf, just like at the cafe." Claire blinked. "You remembered that?" "Actors have sharp memories," he said with a wink. But the softness in his tone betrayed something deeper. She wanted to scold him for showing up, but relief washed over her instead. After the past week's silence, Alex's breezy presence felt grounding. Now she had two men circling her life, one asking for another chance, the other refusing to fade away despite not being part of her story to begin with. That evening, Claire sat with her best friend, Olivia, in a cozy pub near Fenway. She spilled everything, the hired fiancé, the blow-up at the party, Ryan's painful words, and Alex's persistent energy. Olivia laughed so hard she nearly spilled her cider. "Claire, only you could create a love triangle out of a job listing." "It's not funny," Claire groaned, dragging her hands down her face. "Ryan deserves better than the stunt I pulled. And Alex isn't even supposed to be in the picture." "So why is he?" Olivia asked, raising a brow. "Why not just tell him thank you and goodbye?" Claire hesitated, staring into the bubbles of her drink. "Because he makes it easy to breathe. Like I don't have to control everything around him." Olivia leaned forward, eyes sharp. "Then maybe the question isn't which of them you choose. Maybe it's who you are when you're with them. Which version of Claire do you actually like?" The words knocked into her like a revelation. With Ryan, she was constantly curating, anticipating, polishing. With Alex, she was messy but alive. Ryan called again 2 nights later. "Dinner. Just us. No pretending, no lies. Let's talk honestly." Claire agreed, because a part of her still loved what they had built. That history couldn't be erased so quickly. But the night before that dinner, she found herself standing outside a small black box theater where Alex was performing a one-act play. She slipped inside quietly, sat in the back row. The lights went up, and there he was, transformed on stage, vulnerable, powerful, completely lost in a role and yet more himself than she'd ever seen. Claire realized something unsettling during that performance. She was smiling uncontrollably. She hadn't smiled like that in months. When the curtain fell, Alex spotted her in the shadows and grinned so wide it made her heart, a heart still tethered to Ryan, flutter with dangerous possibility. The night of her dinner with Ryan arrived. Claire sat across from him at a quiet Italian restaurant. The candlelight softened his sharp features, making him look like the man she had fallen for months ago. "Claire," Ryan began carefully, "I want to make this work. But I need to know, am I really the one you want? Or, was that actor just some wake-up call you're too afraid to admit?" Claire swallowed hard. For once, she didn't dodge the question. "You are safe, Ryan. Familiar. But every time I picture our future, I see myself editing who I am. And I'm tired of editing. With you, I'm always worried about controlling every detail. I care about you. But I don't think I can be me with you." His face fell. He didn't argue, didn't explode. For the first time, Ryan simply nodded, acknowledging a truth they both had avoided too long. "Then it's better we end it now." His voice cracked, but he smiled sadly. "I hope you find who you can be yourself with." And just like that, their chapter closed. Days later, Claire met Alex at the same cafe where their strange arrangement had begun. He was already waiting, leaning back with that crooked grin. "So," he teased, "no more double fiancé parties?" She rolled her eyes, but a genuine laugh escaped. "Definitely not. I don't think Boston society can survive another one." Alex raised his coffee cup. "To new beginnings, then?" Claire sipped hers before answering. "To honesty." There was a pause, soft and electric. For once, Alex didn't perform, didn't dramatically quip. He looked at her as though she wasn't a role, but a person he wanted to know for real. Claire exhaled slowly, realizing that sometimes the most unpredictable paths, the ones you try hardest to avoid, turn out to be the start of something true. Boston buzzed around her as seasons changed. Claire no longer walked into rooms trying to curate perfection. She learned to laugh at herself, to embrace flaws, to let go of fear. Ryan moved on, finding someone who cherished his wild energy. And Alex remained in her life, not as a hired role, but as something real, something unpolished, something she chose with open eyes. The infamous night of two fiancés became legend at her firm, retold with laughter for years. But for Claire, it was more than just chaos. It was the night she stopped pretending. The night she reclaimed her story. And sometimes, she thought, sipping coffee beside Alex with the city alive around them, it takes a little chaos to find real clarity.